modification of an object previously experienced and not forgotten comes back to consciousness, that is memory. And from Satchidanandana's translation, he says, memories create impressions in the mind and at a later time come to the surface, either when we want them to, or sometimes even when we do not want them to. Memories come in two ways. Dreams are memories that come to the surface when we sleep. Daydreams are memories that arise during the day. Both are impressions which, when formed, slowly descend to the bottom of the mind or the subconscious and come to the surface when they are rekindled for some reason. So these are the 5 kinds of vrittis or thought forms. Vritti can also be translated as fluctuations of the mind that must be controlled to make the mind void and to allow the inner peace to shine through. Knowing this, our next question is, how can we control these vrittis? It is easy to say control the mind, but in reality, the mind seems to be controlling us. So this is a pretty packed sutra. What they're talking about are impressions or samskaras, and I always use this example of Play-Doh. Like when you're a kid and it's just fun to smush things into the Play-Doh and take it out and sort of see the impression. Like my kid just got all these Play-Doh stamps and she's just smashing the stamps, and it leaves behind an impression in the subconscious mind. Like all throughout the day, everything that we're taking in is creating impressions, whether we realize it or not. The prefrontal mind is capable of processing one thing at a time, but the subconscious mind processes everything. If you're at a party, it's hearing every conversation. It's taking in every sight, every sound, every little piece of information, whether you're consciously aware of it or not. So we, as yogis, are supposed to be really careful of what we imbibe through the senses, because we know it's what's conditioning the chatter of the mind. So all the emanations that are coming up in not just our dreams, but but also what happens is if you don't work it out through your dreams and you don't work it out through your daydreams, you start working it out in your actual life, is what so it behooves us to really examine what's going on inside of ourselves through this contemplation and meditation practice. Otherwise, we're going to get ourselves into trouble in real life. It's like if somebody told you your whole life, you're stupid, you're stupid, you're stupid. Even if you were a genius, you'd be getting that impression over and over and over again in your subconscious mind. And slowly you say to yourself, well, I'm stupid, so I can't read a book today. I'm going to do something else. Or I'm stupid, so I can't take the advanced course in high school. I'm stupid, so I can't go to college. So it almost becomes this sort of self-manifesting thing, right? The impressions become the thoughts, become the actions. So through the meditation practice, we really get good at sort of disseminating, is this a helpful thought? Is this a not helpful thought? Like we talked about sort of in the beginning of this journey we're taking. And we can then start to work through. Another way I've been taught this is that these impressions are like little seeds that are planted in the subconscious mind that will eventually, under the right circumstances, grow into trees. And you have no control over when they start to grow into those trees. You may think, oh yeah, I've done all this spiritual work. I wear my mala beads and I walk around and, you know, I say Om Shanti to everyone. And then suddenly some circumstance comes in and it triggers your seed. And all of a sudden it manifests into this gigantic response that can get us into trouble. So this idea, he's talking about, quote unquote, controlling the mind. I try to sort of shy away from that word because I think it insinuates that the mind is something bigger than it actually is. Our responsibility is to learn to master the mind. So it's like we make the mind the Bhagavad Gita says the mind makes a terrible master and a wonderful servant. Right? But quite often we are the servants to our mind. Whatever jumps into the mind, we either react to it or we go and we do it. It's like you have a thought, oh, I need this thing. You reach out and try to grab the thing, right? What meditation does is it creates a space where we have the trigger, and we are so mastered over the mind that it doesn't grow into a tree, right? We keep it a tiny little dandelion, and we could pluck out the weed from there, if that makes sense to everyone. What else to say about this one? Yeah, I guess we'll get into the 5 kinds of pratis later on. So yeah, any thoughts? Oh, is everybody muted? Let's unmute everybody. I'm reclaiming the host.
Everybody's unmuted.
Okay. Any thoughts?
I'll share. You know me.
Okay, go for it.
Chakra. So I used to always say, this is kind of like just curious, like whoever can add to it and like help clarify for me. I'm always thinking that like a lot of times what I say in classes is to be present in this moment, not the moments that came before, not the ones that are ahead of us, because the moments that came before are memories, and memories are inventions of the mind. So sometimes we'll retell a story, or we'll have a memory and we'll share the memory. And then someone else who was present during that time will be like, no, that's not what happened. What happened was this, and that. And you just skipped like 3 parts. So it's like always like, how can I use that information for my healing and my uplifting, that sometimes I don't remember things accurately. And therefore the things I'm mad about, or the things I'm upset about, or the things that have caused me some trauma or pain, there's a possibility that there's a different perspective to that thing for so long. So I'm just wondering, like, would you say that? Would you say that a memory is an invention of the mind?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Yeah, that's so insightful.
I love that, Adriana.
Yeah.
Actually, I think that's stated a little bit too strongly, because I think it is true that in every circumstance, what makes us is how we interact with various aspects of the world. And so different people might be interacting with the same set of processes that we're interacting with, and each of us modify it somewhat differently. But to call it an invention almost sounds like it's something made up, and it's really not. Fantasies can be made up, but they're made up as a result of some kind of interaction with some kind of internal process. So I was just reading this book by Carlo Rovelli, who is Amanda, a famous Italian physicist.
Oh, cool. What's the book?
Something about time, the awareness of time, or something like that, because I've gotten really interested in time. And I think there has to be a word that has more acknowledgement of the process of creating a memory, which is true. You create your own memories, but you create them from actual interactions with something else. And so it's almost like 7 Samurai memories can be different. I don't know if you could call them wrong. Although I agree with you, Adriana, that sometimes it's like you totally misremember something. But I think invention is really almost too powerful.
The other piece to this too is like, I remember, I think this goes in with the sutra that we did like day before yesterday when Renata was facilitating, where it's like, I remember that my mother was angry when I came home and I saw her in the kitchen. Like I walked into the house and it's like I knew my mother was angry, and instead of having a conversation with her, I sensed her anger and I walked away. I didn't get involved. So now when I replay that memory and I'm like, oh, remember on Tuesday when you were in the kitchen and you were pissed off? And then the other person is like, No, I don't remember that. I wasn't pissed off on Tuesday because I never even knew what was going on. I just had like this impression in my mind. I thought I knew, you know, like I thought my mom was the snake, but really it was just the rope. And then I went back and I created a memory about the snake, which wasn't even a snake, was a rope. So the memory is linked to an untruth. So I feel like
The memory is not linked to an untruth. The memory is linked to what you perceived at the time. That's not, you know, I don't, that's not an untruth. That's what you perceived at the time. What your mom perceived. And yes, I'd back out of the room if I saw my mom was pissed too. Yeah, you just back slowly away, keep moving. What my mom perceived, she was interacting differently with whatever was going on, and not even interacting necessarily with the same process that you were interacting with.
It begs the question, what is
truth? Because that implies that there is one truth.
Well, it begs the question, what is truth, right? It sounds like, Sue, you're saying that truth is something that's subjective to the individual experiencing it, and Adriana is suggesting that there's an overall truth that we're not touching upon through our limited perceptive vehicles. So they're both right.
yeah, totally.
Yeah. And there is a real neural connection that does happen in the brain when we perceive something. So that is a real thing that we have to deal with, like what you're saying the physicist was explaining, the Italian physicist. Is that what he was getting at?
Yeah, the adorable Italian physicist, yes.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
That's why this idea of truth is very subjective, because what I have experienced and what somebody else has experienced in the same moment doesn't necessarily mean that my experience was right or their experience was right. It's subject to the samskara that we've been exposed to. So if I have conditioning to think that my mom is regularly pissed off in the afternoons, maybe that was just I perceived that way because many times I came home and she was pissed off in the afternoon. And it doesn't mean that's wrong, and it doesn't mean that's right either. That's why we live in this soup of our own perspective of reality. I spoke about this yesterday or the day before as well. Like when we think about something, a subject, we can only understand that by our file cabinet, what we have stored in our brain, and about that stuff. The example that I said was like, Michelin is very creative. So I only understand what creative is by going in my file cabinet and taking out creativity. And that's what I perceive that what Michelin is in my perspective. But there's no truth there. That's just what my mind can wrap itself around. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't really think that there is a absolute truth. I don't think there's an absolute anything. And who is to say, oh no, what you perceive, Adriana, was wrong. This is what happened. No, this is what you experienced, and that's what I experienced. We don't have to take the experience away. But in terms of healing, why do you really have to go back into memory to heal?
Because your memories are coloring the present moment. I think what I related most to about what Adriana was saying was that we can't experience the present moment a lot because we're looking through the facade of our memories. And that's something that the Vedas teach too, that what's real is the present moment. The memories, while they were real in those present moments, when you're experiencing them, they're no longer real. You can't re-experience them. You can only re-experience them through the mind, through your colored lens of perception. So it creates suffering. And the idea here is, in order to master the mind, we have to start to create a different relationship with the way that we perceive the emanations of the mind. And it doesn't make it where you didn't have that experience, or your perspective was wrong, or you didn't have an experience. You know what I mean? Like, your truth was that you did have the experience, but to find a state of peace, you have to calm your mind down. And in order to calm your mind down, you have to deal with the present moment as it is, not as we expect it to be. Because then the present moment isn't being perceived as it is, it's being perceived as we are, which is something you mentioned very articulately the other day when you were leading Renata.
Yeah, I mean, Jafar, when it talks about trauma, it talks that it's not the event that creates trauma, but the way we perceive it. So it's very tricky, because it's never really the event. If we have 8 people in a room and an event happened, could be traumatizing for 3 of them, and 5 of them could be okay about it.
Mm.
So what's reality? That's the question.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, finish up, because I was going to say, you made me think about something that relates to memory and getting me, like, a time when I was, like, really stuck, because I was stuck in my head with the way things used to be and what I used to enjoy. And it was when I moved to New York.
Mm.
And I couldn't go home. For 2 years, I couldn't go home. And for a whole year, I was really miserable, because I hated everything the way it was here. And today, when I look back, like, years later, it wasn't that it was so terrible. It was that I was still stuck in my head with the way things were. I had friends, I had a beach to go to, like, completely different world. And I missed that so much. That's all I thought about. And then I couldn't go home. And in my head, everything was still the same back home. And that was my memory. And then I finally went back home 2 years later, and everything that was in my head was not there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
The way I was holding on to it and grasping to that. But all those memories, as beautiful as they are to me, is what made me struggle so much. And I was stuck for so long, just really being miserable.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, the cause of memory causing suffering, and I guess going back to a memory and putting expectations on a present moment, because this is the way I used to experience things, bringing that into, and then you can't be present.
Yeah, and here's another fold, just to finalize. We tend to think that we have to eliminate or complete eliminate suffering from our lives. But the reason why you are where you are machining today is because you had that realization. So the suffering is actually really necessary in order for us to move from where we are into the next step. So not all suffering. It's something that we should avoid, and where we are right now, it's a perfect example of this. As if we are suffering right now, is that still space for us to contemplate, for us to grow something inside of us, for us to develop ourselves in this moment right now that's so special and healing. So it's not the avoidance of suffering, or I feel, there is both sides. Yeah, that's my last 2 cents.
Yeah, Renata, I mean, suffering is a condition of having a human body. It's unavoidable, is what the yogis teach. It's we're gonna suffer, but we'll also feel pleasure and joy, and they're just conditions. And if we aren't able to ride the waves, if the waves are drowning us, the waves of pleasure and pain, then that's going to be it for us. The yogis are trying to teach us that there's a deeper part of ourselves that's not changing like that can observe the changes, and it makes it where it's okay to experience suffering, and it's okay to experience happiness, and you can more fully experience it with presence.
Yes.
It's almost like we check out of our experience through our memories sometimes.
Right. That's why
To be present.
that's why conversations like this are really important, because there is that phrase that says pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. But I truly believe that being in this body, just like you said, we must not throw the baby with the bathwater. There is part of us that needs the suffering, and feeling all of that is not something that we should regret or we should avoid. There is a lesson through that door. There is such a growth when we are in the space of contraction, because that's when feels that we have to override the contraction and say, what am I holding on to? If all of this really is an illusion and it's just the way I perceive this moment, is that a different way that I can perceive this? And that's where there is that step out of the box, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, Adriana, that was a really nice conversation opener. I'm gonna think about this a little bit more.
For sure.
I have something. I wake up every morning and I look at my Facebook memories. I love looking back. I love looking through like pictures and what I was saying, but I feel like sometimes I see people's posts and I'm like, is this like what you're saying, Adriana? Like, I feel like every time I'm doing something throughout my day, I'm like, which cutter do I want to put in the Play-Doh? Like, which ones do I want to remember? And some we get to choose and some are handed to us. But I think it, like, every time we read a sutra, and we all know this, but it's just like just putting it into the Play-Doh harder. And how can we control these? And it's like, all right, enough already. We know we have to meditate, we have to do it, but like, we're not really doing it. I mean, we are, but like not enough out there. And I didn't start doing it seriously till now. And I'll scroll through my Facebook in the morning and see my memories, but then I go sit and meditate for 20 minutes because I don't want to live in those memories for the day. I want to set my intention for this day so I can pick and choose which Play-Doh cutters I want to create my day with.
That's
So
sweet.
I think knowing, as long as knowing this, once we know this, then we know how we can create our memories, whether they're good or bad. Like, and that's why sometimes I'll post something that's really real because I don't want to scroll through my Facebook memories and see this fake positive life. Like, there has to be the real in there too. So that's just my tip. And even like with Eric, he just started working from home today and he's already said the F word like 5 times. And I'm like, he is not your dad. He's Eric. He's fine. You're safe. Like, I have to keep pulling myself back in there because I'll spiral and go down there and I'll start a fight with him and my whole day is ruined. But instead, I'm like, I'm coming to my computer. It's fine. He can hear everything.
Yeah, for sure. 95% of our day, we operate in a subconsciousness. So these moments that you have that you say, no, I'm not going to go to this moment and this memory and live this again. I'm going to create a different imprint in the Play-Doh. So that's a conscious moment that you have. But the other 95% of the day, you're just really reacting through the subconsciousness that is already being imprinted. So what the meditation does is create a new imprinting that eventually, when you get into that mode of subconsciousness, there's an override response in that. And that's why it's so important for us to do this practice of meditation. It's very subtle. We, like, oh, I meditated 3 days, nothing changed in my life. Well, yeah, but in 30 days, there's a major, shift in the subconsciousness where you don't have to be conscious to act on it. There's already an override happening in the background.
Well, that's kind of why I tricked people into my plank group. Because you can't get people to sit and meditate, but you can get them to compete in plank. But planking is really a form of meditation. If someone's going to sit and give them 30 seconds to plank or 5 minutes to plank, then at least it gives them every day something to decide. Am I going to plank today or am I not going to plank today?
Yeah, absolutely.
You are very devious.
I know.
She is. She's great.
Now I know the truth, Pam.
Well, and planking
Don't tell
is
anyone in
really,
the plank group.
Like,
what
Pam,
You just
Don't tell anyone in
meditated.
the plank group.
like, Pam, don't let Pierre hear you.
but planking is also very good for you. So you get, it's like this is the catch-22 at my planking. Like, I don't believe that this is planking. I mean, my meditation, like this is not the only way to meditate. Some people will argue with me, but those people I don't. But if I need to plank, if I need to meditate with legs at the wall, or my hip is really bothering me, so I may do a hip opener for 20 minutes so that I can get my body comfortable. Otherwise, my mind isn't going to work for 20 minutes, and then it's not working. So if you need to plank and meditate, and planking is meditation for, or what do I say? I forget. The words aren't coming to me, but for me, planking is exercising the mind. If you can't build a strong mind, you're not gonna be able to sit in meditation for 20 minutes.
I'll
And
say,
I've been planking every day for 3 years, and I can't plank for 20 minutes. And I was thinking about this walking Kramer, but like I can come and sit and meditate for 20 minutes, but I didn't start here in 20 minutes. I started slow and I build myself up. And I think that's important to remind people, is meditation is important. So is planking, but you don't have to start at 20 minutes. Start at 3 minutes and just do that for a week. Build the habit.
You touched on so many important things, Pam. Like that whole idea of cultivating your life, like curating your experiences, if you have the capability to do so, is a really powerful tool. It's like the cutting of the Play-Doh. It's like, okay, how many times am I going to look on Facebook at all these terrible things and everyone dying and all this awful stuff? How many like different impressions am I intentionally creating? And then like, of course, I'm sitting in horrific anxiety all day long. Like yesterday I was sitting in the sandbox, like in the sandbox with my 2-year-old, and I'm like super anxious in the sandbox. I'm like, whoa, you got to pull it together. Here you are, present in the moment. There are the trees, listen to the sounds. Like, and I pulled myself back and the anxiety subsided a little bit, but like I was really doing, you know, it's important to be aware, but it's also important to not, you know, create a false reality. Okay, I'm not at the hospital right now. I'm no longer working as an EMT. Like, I'm not in it. If I'm in it, then I have to be present for that too. But like currently in this moment, can I even be present with my child? You know, it's like really powerful stuff. Like, what am I intentionally putting in? And that's what my teacher always teaches. He's like, what are you going to decide while you have all this time at home that you're going to fill your day with? What kind of impressions are you creating? You know, are you starting with philosophy in the morning? Are you meditating? Are you doing your asana practice? Are you present while you're eating? Are you present with your family? You know, how are you going to sleep at night? He reads these like Leelas. I still haven't tuned in. Instead, I'm like, you know, looking on Facebook at the news when I know like I should be, you know, listening to something that's gonna uplift me, you know, because then at night I'm having anxiety dreams. It's like all.
And then I'm reading the Amanda book, the 14 lessons.
Oh, okay.
You know, the one everyone's talking about, the one everyone hates.
Yeah.
And I love chapter 5 and the power of dynamic thought. And if we are, I mean, I'm not saying like I was really angry the other night, like that was real to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay to have all that anxiety and sit with it. But we yogis have these tools that we can get over these, and we have to be the ones that are putting these healing power positive thoughts out there, but they have to be real. They can't be fake.
Yeah.
It's not going to work. And these poor nurses, I have friends that are in a few hospitals, and they are like, we have to get these thoughts out there because we have to heal this faster. Like, we need to do it faster for them because they are struggling, and there's nothing we can do for them except that. Stay home and cut the anxiety and cut the anger and just keep putting love and heal out there. So,
I mean, you're doing it right. You're taking action as often as possible in whatever way.
But I also went overboard, and I knew I now have to pull back. I felt myself tumbling.
Mm.
And I'm like, what am I trying to cover up here? Like, what am I running from when I do those projects? So I pulled back. I did what I could. And of course, if they need something, but I don't need to just recreate things. I need to sit with myself now. Like, I need to come back to do this. I need to I joined Jafar's trainings yesterday, and I need to work on the list I have here already, like everyone else is doing their project list.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's all again about perspective, right? Yesterday I get a message from a medium that had predicted all of this, and I sent to some of you. And what she was saying is that yesterday we really got a shot of extra dynamic energy to be able to heal our wounds and to be able to, forgive and to really see the truth about ourselves, to really delve into creativity and to lose ourselves away from our minds. And what I was doing the entire day, making sure that I was not giving into any negative thought. So every time I said something or I see myself going to Facebook and checking the numbers or going to the news, I would say, no, I'm not doing that today. I'm only staying light. Guess what? Today's a new day. And it's really interesting to think that every day we have this possibility. It doesn't change for us at all. Nothing changes. Every day we have the possibility to heal our wounds. Every day we have the possibility of forgiving someone. And we don't have to wait for a medium to send us this message. The way we perceive is that we need something external. We need somebody to give us permission to do what's already here. We just have to really, find that kingdom and receive it.
Yeah, I listened to that message that you sent. It was in Spanish, right?
What language was it in? I was like, what is happening right now?
I just really needed to, even if you guys don't understand, if you hear her voice.
Yeah, she sounded beautiful. It sounded like poetry.
Yeah.
Yeah, what she was saying was really beautiful, and it's something that I've been feeling also. That this moment in time, all of the beings, so all of the intergalactic beings, all of everything that's on the other side of this, and all of it exists. She talks about Jesus Christ, she talks about guardian angels and archangels, and she talks about galactical beings, and how all of them are in a conference. And in this conference, they are trying to decide whether humanity should continue or not. She says that this is something that came to her through her meditation, and that she feels it like a very deep truth, which is why she had to share. That yesterday there was a special portal opening, this beautiful sort of like space, and that our only job really is to heal these wounds, and that there's a special opening for us now in this time, and that all these beings, all these like other side, other dimension, God, whatever your word is giving us a chance. And that chance is it's not just what you do for each other, but it's what you do for yourself. It's the regard in which you hold yourself. Your one job is to love. Okay. And if your one job is to love one another, and I have made all of you in my image, this includes you. Your job is to love yourself. Your job is to love yourself with all the things you're ashamed of, all the things you're embarrassed about, all the things that you wish you were not or that you were. All of it in this moment, right here, right now, gets your tenderness and your attention, period. And she was like, she was
beautiful,
so
right? It was so beautiful. I had to send to all of you. But this doesn't mean that today the portal is closed. It means that we can create that same tenderness right now in our hearts. And this is our job. That's why we're here. Is to remember that it's a possibility. And this is every day, every nanosecond. It doesn't change.
Well, there's this Peruvian. I have another teacher, and there are prophecies that say the new people are coming, and we are the new people. We are the new people. We are the people who remember. We are the people who hear this call deep in our heart. And what we're going through right now, this is just a perspective. What we're going through right now is a birth, which is why it's so difficult. So that birth that birth process shows up for us individually, like very direct, like this pain we're having hits us in a very personal way where we have to face something internally. But then it also hits everyone across the board, rich, poor, white, black, Muslim, Catholic, atheist, whatever. It hits everybody the same. So this hashtag flatten the curve, we think is just about the virus, but the flatten the curve is no. In the moment of challenge, in the moment of disrupt, utter chaos, like you throw everything in the air. When everything gets thrown in the air, everyone is in the air equally. Everyone is in the space of uncertainty equally. And then it's like in that moment where everything sort of gets suspended, it's our job to co-create what happens, what's next. The world we live in happens here and in here. So what I think about myself, what I think is possible for the planet, for the people, for the animals, for all things, I start to co-create that with my thoughts. And so this time is really important. It's like a total shutdown, a total go inside, a total stay home, go home. Like, because the new world is being birthed. And what, you want a demon baby?
Yeah.
Like demon baby? Or do you want a sweet little kapha happy eater baby? I don't know. It's just thoughts. And then the other thing I think about too is, I listen to Ram Dass and what he talks about Kali, and he says that Kali, the great mother, she's always eating, she's always devouring, she's always consuming. And she says, come my child, consume me, eat me up, eat all of me, take all of me. And I think about that, and it's like, take all of the earth, take all of the resources, drill all of your holes, use up all of your water. You will consume me, and then when you have consumed me, I will consume you. And it's like, whoa, my God, are we all being consumed? We're consuming ourselves. Kali has come. Kali is here. Kali Yuga, no?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, we chose it.
Perspective about this woman who I sent a message with, for you guys is that she says that this process is going to take at least 6 years, so that we really have to pace ourselves. It's not like, oh, we're doing this today, yeah, victory. No, it's 6 years, so we really have to. It's like we are in the womb for 6 years, and we have to really create this path, and we need to pace ourselves. It's another day. It's another day on this journey, and it matters. Everything you do today matters. So that we can do this rebirth that you're talking about, Jen.
Yeah.
So we have 1 more minute for discussion. I just want to thank you guys for such hopeful messages. It's a nice way to end the conversation. And something that I was thinking of real quick is that this is not meant for us to not feel our feelings. I just want to make sure that that gets across, that like they've done these experiments with meditators versus non-meditators in 2 rooms and sort of put electrodes on them and sounded the alarms to see who had a deeper reaction. And most people think that it would be the non-meditator who would feel more deeply, but it was actually the meditator who felt more deeply and was able to bring themselves back down to a present equanimous place, while the non-meditator felt less, but then couldn't bring themselves back down. So while we're going through this, we're going to feel all the feels, and there's a lot of feels to feels, and we're going to feel them really deeply. But the idea of what Pam is saying, just to like bring it all to, tie all the bows, Pam's saying, we can actively choose what we're cutting out, right? We have to feel it. Like what Susan said, it's real, right? We have to feel it, and then we can decide after we feel how we're going to move forward in our day, how we're going to be present, and like what Adriana and Renata are talking about, the kind of future we're going to manifest. Mm-hmm. So thank you so much for the discussion. It was really uplifting for me personally this morning. I'm so happy you guys tuned in. And
yeah, I'm so thankful for this group.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you.
So let's sit now and we'll come to some pranayama and we'll do a 20-minute meditation practice. I'm gonna recommend some stages for your meditation practice. If you're having trouble sitting still today, I'm gonna recommend that you get into a comfortable position and scan your body. And that'll be what you do from head to toe. Just scan up and down and try to relax, and that'll be your point of focus. If you're feeling like your mind is agitating your breath, you're gonna just focus on breathing in for 4 and out for 4. That's option 2. Option 3, if you feel that the mind is very unhinged today, you can take a mantra that's personal to you that you usually work with. Otherwise, you can do Soham mantra. It means I am the witness, I am consciousness. And if you have a different meditation practice that speaks to you, please feel free to do that instead. Just some recommendations if you need them, if you haven't been meditating with us yet. Okay, and we're going to do that for 20 minutes. You're going to find your mind is going to wander off to another point or another place, and your job is to keep bringing the mind back to your point of focus, whatever you choose for today. All right, so let's do some alternate nostril breathing, and then we'll do bumblebee breath. You can take your right hands into Vishnu Mudra, folding the peace fingers into the center of the palm, revealing the thumb and the ring finger. Close off your right nostril with your thumb, inhaling through the left, and closing off both, and exhaling through the right. Inhaling through the right, closing off both, exhaling through the left. Inhaling through the left, closing off both, exhaling through the right. Inhaling through the right, closing off both, exhaling through the left. Inhaling through the left, closing off both, exhaling through the right. Inhaling through the right, closing off both, exhaling through the left. One more round. Inhale through the left, closing off both, exhaling through the right. Inhaling through the right, closing off both, exhaling through the left. We'll take 5 rounds of bumblebee. So you'll take your thumbs and close off your ears, and then take your peace fingers and close off your eyes. You'll inhale through the nose and exhale through the nose. On the exhale, we're creating a buzzing sound in the back of the throat. So you'll try to relax your tongue, try to relax the palate of the mouth, and draw the vibration up into the nasal passage. Okay, so we'll do 5. As soon as you're done exhaling, just start the next one. Don't wait for anyone else. Okay, you can close off. I'm going to mute everyone, and you can come to your meditation practice, and I'll let you know when its time is up. Bring the hands to prayer.